Nice fish. I know you're probably wondering what the hell am I doing with the table full of plugs. I was putting my stuff away. It's middle of the winter now, so I'm saying to myself, I've done a lot of these videos for Surfcaster's Journal with other people talking about the stuff that they like, John Skinner, Billy Wetzel, Bill Jacobs, whoever we can flag on a beach to give us their opinion on what works and what doesn't. I have done some of it myself, so I said to myself, there's a lot of stuff that I didn't cover that I probably can now in the winter time that we have some downtime between the shows, and while I'm cleaning out my mess, I figure I go through some of the plugs in a bunch of different videos. This particular video is going to be just introducing you to different type of lures that we use. My name is Zeno Hromin. If you don't know me, I am publisher of Surfcaster's Journal magazine along with Tommy. We have a magazine that comes out bi-monthly. You can see it at surfcastersjournal.com. You can subscribe to it. It comes out, like I said, 6 times a year, and you get access to all the issues that we've done over the years immediately. But back to the plugs. So today I'm going to introduce the certain lure type of plugs, and then I'm going to go in my own way the way I fish them. I was just at the show last weekend. Actually, it was our Stripe Per Day show at Woods Melville, and a few of the guys walked up to me and said, listen, you know, your book, The Art of Surfcasting with Lures, really opened my mind, or I read this particular chapter and it gave me the confidence. What I'm trying to get at is that everybody fishes differently. There is no right or wrong way to fish. The wrong lures will catch the fish at right time and vice versa, you know, in wrong conditions. There's no, if something works for you, please do not listen to these know-it-all, how you're doing it wrong, or your plug's too big or your color's too big. If it works for you, please continue doing it. Confidence, 99% of this game, okay? My point is, I'm going to tell you how I do it and how I fish. You might not agree with it, you might not even like it. And that's fine. That's why the world keeps turning. It's round, it's different. It makes life interesting. If we were all doing the same thing, really, I mean, after you would catch 3 fish and says this is the only way to catch a fish, you'd be like, I don't want to do this anymore. So that's part of the excitement about trying different things, doing different ways, going different places, okay? These plugs right here, I mean, this is, okay, I'm having a plug problem, just like many of you. But this is maybe 1% of my plugs. I mean, I have hundreds and hundreds of plugs down in the basement hanging out, waiting for the hooks to be changed and all that. So, you know, just like everybody else, I buy a lot. But if you look at this and it says, well, that stuff is not going to get used, you know what? I'm going to go back to my plugs most of the time, the one that I have confidence in. But all of this is going to get used at some time, at some point, under some conditions. So let's just go through a basic type of lures that we use today, so I can kind of tell you, you know, what's what and where I put each. I'm going to start off with something that I should spend most of the time on, but if you really want good videos on how bucktails talk to, you know, go look at John Skinner. Obviously, man is brilliant. He's one of our columnists. I fish bucktails most of the time. So when you're looking at all these lures and the way I fish now, you'll probably be surprised. But years ago, I fished differently. The spots that I fish now require me to use bucktails, or I should say, I'm more productive with bucktails than anything else. So that's what I use them, and that's what you should do. You don't go and fight the conditions or the spot that you're fishing in. I don't see why would you do that. If that's a bucktail spot and works best, do it. If you're fishing an inlet which has a 7-knot current ripping through it, and you're going to throw a dart, which will work great in a current, as you have heard, but it's going to be up in a column. It's going to be a foot underneath the surface, and bass are holding 30 feet down. you know, the right thing to do is to use a bucktail, a heavy bucktail. So my point is, you're going to use what conditions call for. Bucktails come anywhere in the range from a tiny ones that I usually use for weak fish and stuff with a really ultralight tackle or fluke. You have your Spros, which are awesome things when it comes to fluke, super sharp hooks, a little weak hook when it comes to bass. So a lot of guys prefer something like Andrews bucktails. Now the Spro has just came up with these striped bass bucktails with a really good hook. I believe John Skinner had something to do with designing this, or at least he was with testing it. So my point is, they come in all shapes and sizes. They're fairly easy to work, and once you get a hang of them, they just become the extension of your hand, and you're going to catch more fish with bucktails that when you get a confidence than any other lure. And it should be said that it's a lot easier to release the fish unharmed with a single hook. Okay, so if you're into catch and release, and today we're really struggling with these population of striped bass getting decimated, I think bucktails are obviously a beautiful lure to use, not to put any more damage on the fish than you normally would with trebles. Okay. Something a lot of guys don't use, myself in some ways being guilty of this, is tins. Years ago, you used to have your, thin and wide tins, wide for the bunker. You had some with keel. You had some used for distance. Then you had deadly dicks for albies. Now you have these beautiful tins that are almost lifelike. They can imitate just about any bait. What are they good for? I mean, we'll go into detail, but mostly they're good for distance, one thing. Rough conditions, they can work very well. And the ability to imitate bait fairly close, especially the thin profile bait. Teaser, delivery method, the whole 9 yards. Swimming plugs. You have different types. You have most of them cast like shit. Okay, so let's not get carried away that any of these cast well. The best casting plugs that we have all known and fell in love with is the SP Minnow, and in my opinion, it doesn't cast as well as people make it to cast. I'd rather use a Needlefish. Having said that, this plug does work and works well, so I'm not going to crap on it either. Rapala type, I think this is a Rapala type, same thing with a shifting weight system. Obviously, I am not going to mention 50% of the plugs that are on the market that are not on this table for whatever reason. Either I didn't grab it or I don't have it. So don't take this as this is the whole shebang, not even close. All right? You got your jointed ones like the Bombers. And then you have your specialized, what I also feel are swimming plugs. Something like Sabile, Magic Swimmer, or this is ODM, flat shad kind of thing. They are, over the years, we go through these periods of where one thing becomes more popular for a specific period of time, and then we tend to gravitate to whatever worked well over the years. When you fish on a big bait and bunker and herring and mackerel and stuff, and you can get to them, these big type of lures work very well because they do produce a bigger than average size fish. Okay. One night, I believe in Montauk, about 2-3 years ago, Lenny and I threw this thing in a nor'easter, and this is about 6 ounces or so, and I literally threw it with the wind because you couldn't cast it into the wind, and I think every fish that I had was over 30 pounds. I think I had 6 or 7 fish. It was an incredible night, but this is a gigantic lure. Look at the size of this thing. This is a big lure. So that's part of it. Speaking of big lures, bottle plug. Now, again, we're going to cover this, where to use it. Obviously, these swimming plugs, the plastic ones, they're not that stable, so they don't do well in rough water. They don't do well with width. They don't do well in a lot of places. But when they do well, they work well. Bottle plugs or casting swimmer. This is actually Steve Campo's original plug. God, I think I dropped the biggest fish I ever had in my life, a shagwan, on this plug years ago. On the first cast, in a 40 miles an hour northwest wind, on the first cast. This is also his. I think this was special painted gib by late Gibbs for them, for his crew. But you have ones that are big like these. You have obviously the Super Strike, which are, you know, one of the most popular ones. You also have the North Bar makes something slash daughter bottle plug, which is kind of a hybrid in between. Where do they work best? Big bait, strong current, deep water, rough conditions. That's probably as a general sense. The rubber these days, I can't possibly go into all the rubber. Rubber is insane these days. If you take into consideration the small stuff that are used in Florida, like on an inshore for redfish, like, you know, you're talking stuff like this, DOA shrimp, you can spend weeks talking about rubber. So mainly what I have on my table is stuff that we use, you know, small stuff that we use in the spring, and, you know, sand eels that we use generally in June and later in the year if the sand eels do come, which are kind of a smaller, narrower, not smaller shapes. Obviously, sluggos, been working for a long time, still work well, especially if you want to rig them. Stuff like Sebile, which are rubber baits that can be added, weights. You have your tsunami shads in different configurations these days. You have these, you have the thick, the fat ones, the fast sinking ones. You had the mother of all of them, you know, 6 ounces, 9 inches that you would throw in the inlet. Believe it or not when you would think. I will go over that too. So, you know, those are the shads. You basically will use them when there's no bluefish around, because they're just going to cut the tail off and render them useless. So you kind of want to stay away from shads when you get the bluefish around. Metal lips. You go to every show in the wintertime. Metal lips are the stars of the show. I was in one time infatuated with metal lips. And they come in all shapes and sizes, from gigantic ones to, let's see, this is original Donnie Musso torpedo, which I still use, one of my favorite plugs. You have the pikey type, you have the Surfster type with a Surfster lip, or then you have the Z lip, then you have the Adam Jr., then you got the little tiny, almost peanut bunker like. So there's all kinds of swimming plugs. And by the way, I forgot one plug to mention before. This is a smaller version of Sebile stick shot, which is also a great plug. Casts like a mile for its size. So you have all these metal lips which are rendered useless by any wind, or a lot of wind. They cast like a wet rag, but when the conditions are right, they drive fish absolutely insane. Okay, and they can be modified. They also have most of the metal lips are top water swimmers, most of them. Okay, they're designed that way. But you have the subsurface, like Item 40. You can also tweak all of them to go subsurface. Plus, you have some specialized ones which go really deep, like Conrad's, and then you have gigantic ones with like the GRS, which seem to catch only 50-pound bass, not 50, but big fish. Obviously, big bait, big fish. So that is all part of the metal lip kind of insanity. All right. I don't want this video taking 2 hours, so I'm just going to run through this and then we'll go through each individual ones, okay? So, Needlefish, one of my favorite plugs. Come anywhere from stubby ones, they have wood ones, they have plastic ones, they have even metal ones like these that will cast a mile. I have a mercury loaded one that's originally Steve Camper's. There's still mercury in here swinging back and forth. I don't think my wife would appreciate it, but you know, it's here. You have your common Super Strike, obviously. You also have these beautiful custom job. This is Jim Jagged. This thing casts like a bullet. I mean, as you can see it by the size, it's weighted in the back. Then you have this, we call this old man needlefish. It's about 4 ounces. It's used in the heavy conditions. So they're good when sand eels are around. They're good when anything is around. In my opinion, usually the first plug that comes out of my bag at night, okay? The second plug will be a darter. I'll leave that for last. I'll go through the plug poppers because everybody likes poppers. You have basically 2 types. You have your Pensa poppers and you have your standard poppers, right? So the Pensa poppers, they kind of go side to side. where your poppers move. Oops, sorry, I'm gonna lose this. Where your poppers move through the water column, pushing the bait, pushing the water, I'm sorry. Where the pencil poppers are really like swinging like this as you're working them. So you have your stubby type pencil poppers, you have your $3 pencil poppers, Cotton Cordell, you can load it yourself. You have your most awesome guppy pencil poppers that are like compact and cast like hell. You have your Zuri, which used to be, I think, balsa wood or some kind of a foam. Now they switched a little bit just as good. So you have those kind of pencil poppers. Then you have your poppers, which, you know, come from the smallest size all the way out to a little bit larger, Super Strike. You have your, this is Guide's Choice. There's all there's all types of popper plugs, and they're usually the easiest to make. This is the Super Strike. This is a 3-ounce red eyes. We'll go over red, black eyes. Why is this my favorite plug? You know, so I'll give you my point of view. Daughters, they're all the way out here. Now, when people are talking about daughters, they say, nah, there's Super Strike and nothing else. You know what? A lot more than that. Having said that, I will fish Super Strike 99.9% of the time. And most nights, 100% of the time. It's just the way I am. Okay, but there are plugs that you need for specified locations and specified conditions. Specific, sorry. You have the small ones, but you don't see that many. I'm not sure who made that. It could be Choopy, I'm not sure. You have this beautiful wide, I think this is a Johnny one. I'm not sure who made this one. I can't tell you by the name, but this is a beautiful daughter, nice and wide one. You have, this is a wood one, then you have your standard Super Strike, you have your thin original Gibbs 3-hook ones, you have your, this is also an old man, we call it. This is a heavy daughter that digs really deep in specific conditions. And then of course you have stuff like this. I mean, come on, look at this. This is a squid, Google Man squid daughter. I mean, come on now, come on. I want to grab this. I want to eat this. This is beautiful. So, you know, you got all kinds of stuff to fish with, and we'll go over everything. And obviously, we can't cover everything or every lure that's made, but at least you can know the way I fish. And then you adjust this to the way you fish. And hopefully between you and I and everybody else, we'll have a good time, and we'll help you get a few fish. In the meantime, check out the magazine. Obviously, this is why we do all these videos, the Surfcaster's Journal magazine. Now it's in 10th year. It's going to be a 10th year anniversary in November. You can go to www.surfcastersjournal.com. There is, every issue's got about 50 or 60 free pages, which you can read a quarter of the magazine for free. So just click on that, you browse it with your mouse. There is no print edition, it's all online. So go, enjoy yourself. We have a bunch of videos embedded in there. And that's about it. See you at the beach.